Will ATACMS change the things on the front line? Is it democratic to infringe on democratic values? And how to infringe it in a democratic way? How and how much? And no if for Russian reparations. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane in UATV English Studio, again to bring you hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine as usual. Biden's advisor Jake Sullivan confirmed that US President Joe Biden in February 2024 ordered to provide Ukraine with, I quote, a significant number of ATACMS missiles for use on the sovereign territory of Ukraine, end of quote. Sullivan is sure more ATACMS sent to Ukraine will make a difference. He also said that these missiles have already arrived in Ukraine and that Washington is confident that Kyiv will not use them to strike Russian territory. And you probably heard, those voices going hysterical from time to time like, oh my God, don't send weapons. There's going to be an escalation. What escalation? You mean more genocide against Ukraine? More civilian infrastructure damage? More Ukrainian children abducted? I wonder what is that escalation level up that these voices are so afraid of? A nuclear extermination? Well, Russia has already got a hold of ZNPP, remember, and Russian mines at a Ukrainian nuclear power plant are for safety, according to Russian propaganda. Whose safety, I wonder? Not Ukrainian, that much is obvious, and not Europe's and not the world's. But maybe it is for the safety of these voices who want peace at the cost of Ukraine. And not only Ukraine, I have no doubt if Putin would have murdered every single one of us in Ukraine today and then exterminated half of Europe tomorrow, just as Hitler did once, all he would have to do then is to appeal to these voices and say, well, if you want no escalation and want peace, you have to sign a treaty. And these voices would have signed anything just to appease the monster. Because these voices are in a land far, far away from reality, from a real war and a real need to fight a real aggressor off. For these voices, to stop the war is the same as to win it, which is not the case for Ukraine. Still, we in Ukraine value our word and reputation.
For a long time, we have been checking these commitments of the Ukrainian authorities that they have made on other systems, including HIMARS, when they have said they will only use them on Ukrainian sovereign territory. They have honored that commitment every time with the systems we have provided them, so we are confident that they will honor this commitment again. Jake Sullivan, Joe Biden's national security advisor.
Also good news is that there are other voices
are provided, will you restrict them to fire at targets only inside Ukraine? The ATACMS, the long-range missiles, will there be restrictions for them to be only fired inside Ukraine?
Well, I hope not. I wouldn't try to dictate to the Ukrainians how to handle the war either.
Are you in favor of sending the ATACMS?
I'm for whatever our military thinks would be useful for them. And I would not put restrictions on it. They're dealing with a rogue country that's trying to take away their independence. It's always important to remember, we're not fighting this war. They don't have any troops there. We're helping them stand up for their independence and also to do a lot of damage to the military of one of our two biggest adversaries. What's not to like about that?
Well, amen to that. So this way or another, all I can say one thing. In case you see Crimean Bridge burn anytime soon, remember you're seeing that because Crimea is Ukraine. Ukraine infringes on the freedom and rights of its people. I repeat, Ukraine infringes on the freedom and rights of its people. You are asking, how come? Are you allowed to infringe democratic principles? Before answering that question, I would like to ask you to answer one in return. Are someone allowed to kill people? Now, let me clarify. Are you allowed to kill people who came to kill you, burn your house, and abduct your kids? You see, it is all about clarity and full information before you make any assessment. So infringement of certain freedoms and rights indeed is happening in Ukraine now officially and openly because of martial law, which was adopted at 5:30 a.m. on February 24, 2022 by Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. And since then, the People's Deputies have extended its duration more than 10 times, and they will continue that until the last occupier leaves the land of Ukraine. You see, it is a presidential decree approved by Ukrainian parliament. It is not a secret service undercarpet game. No, the law came into force on the day of its publication on February 24th, 2022, and was immediately announced through the media. In case you missed that, that's okay. Let me voice that for you once again. So, according to law, on the territory where martial law has been introduced, the military command may, within the limits of temporary restrictions on constitutional rights and freedoms of person and citizen, implement measures of the legal regime of martial law in particular, to compulsorily alienate privately or communally owned property for the needs of the state under regime of martial law in accordance with the procedure established by law and issue relevant documents in this regard. To introduce curfew, meaning a ban on staying on the streets and in other public places during certain periods of time without specially issued passes and certificates. To establish a special regime of entry and exit in accordance with a certain procedure. To restrict the freedom of movement of citizens, foreigners and stateless persons, as well as the movement of vehicles. To inspect the belongings, vehicles, baggage and cargo, office premises and homes of citizens in accordance with established procedure, with the exceptions of restrictions established by the Constitution of Ukraine. To prohibit peaceful assemblies, rallies, marches, demonstrations and other mass events. To establish ban on restriction on the choice of place of stay or place of residence of persons in the territory where martial law is in force. To prohibit citizens registered with the military or special registry to change their place of residence, meaning place of stay, without proper permission. To establish military housing duty for individuals and legal entities. Well, just find any Russian propaganda resource on internet and watch and listen to what they are actually saying about what is happening in Ukraine and alleged infringement of freedoms in Ukraine. They say Zelensky's regime is not democratic, and it goes against democracy. It is indeed a guilty pleasure of mine to see Russians talking about freedom and democracy, isn't it? The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe adopted a resolution that calls for the transfer of frozen Russian assets to a special fund from where they will be used to restore Ukraine. Fair enough. All 134 delegates voted anonymously pro this decision. Russia has repeatedly called such plans of Western politicians banditry and theft. Poor Russia. Collection mechanisms, in case Russia refuses, and it does, as we see, have been developed since the beginning of the invasion. Experts add all of it there. Russian income from the sale of oil and gas, seized property, including Vladimir Putin's yacht, actually, for $700 million. The arrest of frozen Russian assets abroad just as well. Historical experience shows that reparation payments by losing party are rarely voluntary. In Russia's case, oh come on, banditry and theft. Oh good lord. War is very costly for all participants, especially and specifically for the losing side, as rule is the aggressor. Thus, after defeat in the First World War, in addition to the economic crisis, hyperinflation, collapse of the political system and large-scale unemployment, Germany got itself a nice giant debt of 226 billion Reichsmarks, which it had to pay to the Entente countries as a result of the Treaty of Versailles. Well, at the very beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky advised Russians to learn two words: reparations and indemnities.
Продовжуємо готувати.
We continue preparation for the first inaugural peace summit in June, and our team, along with the teams of our key partners, is working to make the summit truly global. We can say for sure that all continents will be presented, different parts of the world, different views on global development, but all of them share the same recognition that UN Charter and basic international conventions are binding documents for every country in the world, including a country like Russia, where madness prevails. The world majority must force Russia into peace, and it can do this. It is in June that the path to a just peace can begin.
On November 14th, 2022, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution on war reparations to Ukraine in favor of Ukraine, which was supported by 94 countries. The Kremlin dubbed this as an attempted robbery and the beginning of agony, and in fact refused to compensate for the damage. Well, of course, no one expected to, really. Back in January 2022, the damage from hostilities unleashed by Russia in Kyiv was estimated at roughly $700 billion. A year later, the figure increased noticeably. The destruction of Kakhovka hydroelectric power station dam alone, according to the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine, led to losses for more than $2 billion. So, dear Russians, whatever you say today, whatever you will say tomorrow, or the day after, or on any other day, one day you will pay. The world will make you to. And as we can clearly see of today's visit of NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg to Kyiv, there is a solid and concrete assistance to Ukraine in the military sphere and in the sphere of restoring justice. Why? Well, to put it in easy terms, for the global sake of law and order. That concludes today's day and the video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated. Comment, like and subscribe for UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine directly. Your support really matters. Thank you so very much and goodbye.